fact is that feelings matter.
When we talk about the difference between a client one time or a client for their lifetime, that's the difference between professionalism and going above and beyond.
Real estate professionals, welcome back. You're here with Jake and I on the RMG Agent Podcast. So thankful that you're back here with us. As always, we're here to impact, empower, and encourage you. In order to do that well, we need your help. So make sure that you like, subscribe, wherever you're listening to or watching this. And if you would, this time around, do me a huge favor, share it with 3 friends in real estate that you know that this would just be encouraging and really help them move forward in their real estate career. Go to rmgagentpodcast.com for our action guides and everything else, all the goodies there just to really keep you moving forward. Jake, what are we talking about today?
We have got an awesome episode, and before we talk about the episode for today, make sure you go back and watch the bonus episode we did with Danny Martin because it was awesome. It was from one of our team calls where he talked to us about all the things that he does and continues to do in his 29-year career in real estate, which is awesome, and it was so good that we had to bring it to you.
Yes, absolutely.
So today we are going to do our episode, Hooked on a Feeling, Professionalism Isn't Enough.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So everybody who's going to watch this episode, that's going to be in their brain all day, probably all night. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and if we didn't get the license to be able to play that song, it's required that you go play that on a second device while you listen to it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so as we jump into this, we've been talking a lot about professionalism and that's the direction that our industry is going. And we're going to go ahead and level that up as well, right? Like professionalism is going to be your table stakes. And we're going to talk about a lot about the client experience and the things that you need to do to, go even farther than that.
Yeah.
Right. So the first place that we're going to start is we're going to start with our trusted guide model.
Yes. Yeah. So this falls under our trusted guide model, right? So when we talk about the professional real estate agent of the future, they're a trusted guide, right? And the reason that we're paying attention to that and the reason that we're pushing that concept is that what you have to be able to do as a real estate professional is close for compensation. So how do you do that? By being the trusted guide. So that's going to be what is your access to other resources, what is your knowledge, and then ultimately it's going to be how can you take your access and your knowledge and apply it to that person's scenario. And so we're just paying attention to that because that's what we believe is the foundation for your professionalism.
So go back if you haven't heard those episodes. I think there's 4. We laid out the model for the trusted guide in one episode, and then we have a deep dive on each point of the 3 in there. I think they're episodes 15, 16, 17, or 16, 17, 18, something like that.
Yeah.
So
let me tell you a story. So many years ago, like in a galaxy far, far and away, I was in a car accident. Somebody rear-ended me, and it hit me hard enough to break the back of my seat, really messed my back up and everything. And so I didn't do what I should have done, which is go to PT and really start working on my strength. I let my physical health deteriorate. I made a bad decision. So right after that, of course, I decided to play flag football, right? So this is several months later after not going to the gym. I go to play flag football. I'm running. I go to make a cut, which like in my mind was a cut. It was probably like I just moved a little bit wrong sideways and blew my knee out. Tore my ACL. Didn't have insurance at the time, didn't have any money at the time. And so I waited 7 years to be able to go talk to somebody about getting surgery on my knee, right? Not the best decision, and it was what it was. So the first doctor that I went to this guy. He was known for being pretty good at what he did in the area. And I sit down with this guy, and he is just absolutely gruff. He looks at me and basically says, "You're an idiot." Right? Thank you. Appreciate that. Right? It was humorous at the time, but the whole time, like he was just like, his paradigm was, "I'm the best that there is. You're stupid, and I can fix your knee, but you're an idiot."
Yep.
Right? And very, very professional when it came to his ability to repair knees. The problem is in the medical profession is that people who are highly professional but don't have a great bedside manner are really missing a huge piece of what ultimately the client experience need to be. So much so that there's been many, many studies done that show that doctors that have a good bedside manner And in that arena, what that looks like is three things. One is they're empathetic. Number two, they take more time with you. And number three, they're an active listener. People that in the medical profession can demonstrate those three skill sets, the risk of getting sued for malpractice is less than 50% of somebody who is a good professional doctor but doesn't have good bedside manner.
Yeah, so the difference is that they both doctors can do the job, but one connects with the client and one doesn't.
Yeah, and both doctors at some point in their career are going to mess up.
Yeah.
Right. So these are about malpractice who something went wrong. Mm-hmm. So when something goes wrong for a doctor, if you have bedside manner, you are half as likely or more to not be named, even if the end result was poor, even if the malpractice suit was something that you actually did mess up. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. So why are we talking about that?
Yeah, so we were talking first, this falls into our application side of things, but when we are, the table stakes being professionalism, mm-hmm. the client experience is now going to be your bedside manner, yes. right? Like, and I would hope none of you get sued. That would be my hope for you. Yes. And I wouldn't say that we're extremely taking this as you're not going to get sued, but when we talk about the difference between a client one time or a client for their lifetime, that's the difference between professionalism and going above and beyond.
Yeah. So the idea of this is that as much as we've talked about professionalism, and we will continue to talk about that because it is becoming, it absolutely should become our industry standard. The fact is that feelings matter. The fact is that in any service industry, the way you make somebody feel is actually what's going to deepen the relationship. It's going to create repeat and referral business, and it's going to create a wow experience. And I think we need to talk about that a little bit because I think there's some things that we can proactively do as professionals to make sure that our bedside manner is great, to make sure that people have an experience that's worth remembering.
So feelings matter, and we're going to go into some skills that you need to go through. So the first one is empathy. If you're not a very empathetic person, what do you do?
If we zoom out for a second, we talk about personal growth, right? We did a class a while back with a group of real estate agents, and this shows up in this area of having a fixed mindset or having a growth mindset. So when I have a fixed mindset as a person, that ultimately shows up in my identity. So I might say something. So let's say I'm a dominant, driven, let's go get it real estate agent, and then somebody says something like empathy. If I have a fixed mindset, I'm going to say something like, I'm not an empathetic person. So what I just did is I basically just said, my behavior is fixed, right? Mm-hmm. And my identity is that I'm not empathetic. Okay, well, let's think about that. Just purely like if we just took that out of how important it is in your life to learn empathy, right, to be empathetic, and we just take that at face value, like what you're saying is I can't grow, right? What you're saying is I choose to identify with something that is not helpful to my clients. It's not helpful to my family. It's not helpful to my business. You can choose that, right? But if you go over here and you look at the growth-minded person, that person looks at this and says, is this a skill that I can develop? Empathy is a skill, right? You might not be naturally empathetic. You might not have been as empathetic up to this point in your career as you should be or will be. But you can say something different like, empathy is important for my business and I choose to grow in my ability to be empathetic.
Yeah. So I heard you say recently that when you choose something that's a skill set as your identity, you're really choosing, and this is me now paraphrasing it, you're choosing an excuse over choosing to grow.
That's exactly right. And we do it all the time, and it's so it's just so corrosive, mm-hmm. right? Because a lot of times we say it and we don't really we don't say it in a way that we're really committed to it. We say it kind of in a funny way, mm-hmm. but we're creating these patterns and these tracks in our mind, right? Mm-hmm. About who we are and what my identity is. And every time that we do that, right, there are very few things in this life that I want to have as an identity. right? I want those things to be concrete. They're unmovable. One of it, I in my identity, I am a husband and a father. Those things are immovable objects in my life, right? I'm a Christian. That's an unmovable object in my life. Pretty much everything else is up for debate. It's up for me looking through the lens of being growth-minded to grow my skill set, not tie it to my identity.
Yep. And I still struggle with some of these things. I'm a little farther, but I am working on them. And when I find myself saying something is that's a skill set that is, now my identity. And a prime example of this, we had conversations about investments. And for me, I told myself I'm a risk adverse person, right?
Right.
Like that's a skill set that I now have to work through. Mm-hmm. And I am working on becoming more risky, working on becoming more investment. So sorry, I sidetracked us there.
Yeah, but that makes sense.
Let's jump into our next skill set somebody needs to develop. Active listening.
Yeah, so now we just kind of say look, time out. These are skill sets. If you don't have them, you need them, mm-hmm. right? So choose to be growth minded. So the first one is going to be empathetic, mm-hmm. right? I'm going to listen and I'm going to truly hear the heart of the person that's sitting in front of me. If I do that, I'm going to be more prone to be able to connect with them. If I'm prone to connect with them, then they're going to be more prone to trust me. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to develop empathy. And I'm going to use active listening skills. If somebody says the same thing I'm a horrible listener. Okay, what are you gonna do about it? Stay a horrible listener the rest of your life? How's that gonna work out for you?
Right.
You're gonna work on it. And then also awareness, right? These are three things that if we want to create a foundation for creating great experiences, for our clients having an incredible feeling when they're with us, we think that empathy, active listening, and awareness matter, right? Those are three skills that we can work on developing.
Yeah, so we're really honing in on the feeling that a client has throughout the transaction.
Yes. So time for another story. So one of my favorite listings I ever took was for this family of four in kind of close to the bluff in Anchorage, Alaska. A really big, beautiful, nice house. They were interviewing multiple agents. At that time in my career, there were at least two other agents that interviewed with them that were more qualified than I was. I was still a pretty young agent. The others they were outstanding agents. And so what happened was, when I was sitting down and doing the consult, I noticed there are two kids who were just awesome kids, little kids. They would come home from school and they would just tear up the house, not in a destructive way, but they would go to their rooms and their toys would go everywhere. So inside the hour that I was meeting with the couple, there were lots of distractions from the kids, and you could tell there was just this level of anxiety that was growing in them, prepping their house for sale and keeping it ready for showings, because their kids, being just normal, really wonderful kids, were doing that. I picked up on it. Right. So it wasn't even something they said, but there was a level of empathy I saw, especially in the wife, with the level of work, the weight that she was feeling.
Yeah.
And I was aware that this was something that was kind of in the mix. And so before I left, I asked the parents, I said, hey, would it offend you if I talk to your kids real quick? Right. And I have kids, they were like, sure. Right. So I sat down with the kids. I went over to the living room. They were playing, and I sat on the floor and I got lower than they were. Right. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't lording over them. I got lower than they were. And I just said, hey, your mom and dad are doing something awesome for your family. And one of the things that's going to be super helpful for them is if for the next, 30 or 60 days, you guys really worked hard to help your mom make sure that the house was clean and your toys were put away and all those things. And if you guys do that, and if your mom tells me you do a good job, I will buy you tickets to the water park. And the kids were like, oh my gosh, right? I could feel the load come off of the mom. And the kids actually did it. It was 50-50, right? Yeah. But the kids actually did that. And at the end of the transaction, I wrote the parents a note, right? Everything went well, sold in 5 days. And I gave the kids, the whole family, tickets to the water park and popcorn and just a whole bunch of other little things, right? But the reality is that relationship continued for many, 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 many years. We just built, of course, a great relationship, got lots of referrals from them. But the reality is, the transaction, it was good. I did a good job. But that was table stakes. The reality is, in that moment, there was empathy, there was awareness, and then the last thing that matters probably as much, if not more than everything else when it comes to creating a great experience for your clients, is immediate action. This is where I think a lot of us fall short, and I certainly do, and that is in real estate or in business or in life, we see these little moments to wow people. We see these little moments to express empathy. We see these little moments to express some level of care. And in that moment, you know what you should do, right? Like we have a conversation, you're having a hard day, I walk away and think, you know what? If I wrote Jake a handwritten note and put it on his desk, that would mean a ton to him. I go away, I am satiated by the good feelings from my intention, but I don't take immediate action. So then the other person never gets to experience the feeling that matters. The problem is I experience the feeling even though I didn't do anything.
Yep. Yeah, that's a really cool story as I'm thinking through it of like, you know, just all the things we talk about that you're demonstrating, like you're demonstrating as a parent, understanding how hard this is going to be. You're demonstrating that you are aware of the issues that could arise later for them. And then you got buy-in from the kids, which is just amazing. Yeah. So that's awesome.
It was super fun, right? So for us, I think that just the biggest thing that I want agents to take away is that wherever you are right now in building your skill set around creating amazing client experiences, that you need to grow in that area because your professionalism will become table stakes. Right now, your professionalism might really set you apart because, again, we have professionals in a non-professional industry.
Yep.
As that changes and we have professionals in a professional industry, we're going to have professionals that sit down with people, tell them they're an idiot. And we have professionals that sit down with people, listen actively, hear them, and then take immediate action on making that person feel a certain way.
Nice. That's awesome. Okay, so our third point is lifestyle.
Yes.
What are we talking about?
So beyond building a skill set around this, one of the things that I'm passionate about and we're passionate about is building people. Right? Our mission is to build wealth and homes with everyone we serve. And ultimately, if you want to do this at a super high level, it's not exclusive to your business. It actually becomes a part of your lifestyle. And there's a couple reasons for that. One is, you know, does that make you like a better, more, helpful human? Yeah, it probably does. Right? But the second thing is if I want to get truly legendary in this area of clients experience, I need lots and lots and lots of repetition. And if I expand that out across my lifestyle, and this is just kind of who I become, not just something I do in my business, you're going to get better.
Yeah, so it reminds me a little bit of, fortunately, we're in Spokane right now, and we've got a pretty famous hotel downtown called the Davenport. And there's a pretty famous story that led to a lot of changes in client experiences. They came from that hotel. So the owner of that, his name was Louis Davenport. And inside the hotel, there's kind of an open area with a mezzanine over that circles it, and that's where the people would eat and sit at. And this is, early 1900s. And he would wander that. The owner would wander that mezzanine overlooking all the people that are coming in. And he's, attuned to the things that they need and making sure that they're being taken care of. But at one point, there's a young couple came in there with bagged lunch. And, they wanted to experience the Davenport, but they couldn't afford it. So they sit down with their bagged lunch at a table and they're kind of trying to hide to themselves. But he notices, obviously, right? So he calls over the bellman and is like pointing to them and saying, what's going on with this young couple? And the guy's like, oh, do you want me to throw them out? And he's like, no, I want you to go get them plates, go get them silverware, and allow them to eat their food. I know they can't afford to eat our food, but they want the experience and the level of service that we have created that people talk about, that people want to come experience. And so he goes down, gets them silverware, allows them to experience it. And he created not only raving fans from there, but that story spread. That experience spread, and it led to changes in the hospitality industry all over the country and the world.
Yeah.
Through that.
It's amazing, right? So in this moment, in this historical hotel that's doing fine, right? There's guests seated, they're eating, they're paying their bills, all that stuff. Here's this young couple, and it costs that hotel next to nothing, like, you know, the fraction of a fraction of what, you know, the dishwasher is going to get paid for that hour.
Right.
And this young couple experiences having their bag lunch taken, plated, set out on a table. What kind of experience does that person have? Like, that is just such a gift of grace, such a gift of hospitality and generosity. As a young couple, highly likely that over the course of time, they had, they increased their income potential and became people that actually came and paid and all that. But not only that, can you imagine the number of people that they told?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So it makes me think of, people that choose not to work with like first-time home buyers, right? Because the commission might be smaller, the hours might be longer, it might be a harder experience, but you're losing out on potentially, I think the last time I saw the stats is like $54,000 for a lifetime client, right?
Yeah.
But you're also losing out on all those people that they could be telling about you and your experiences that you're giving them. And there's also just a level of human lifestyle that being good and sharing that with, sharing your experience with somebody that deserves it is there.
Yeah. So one of the things that Danny said in our bonus episode was, don't think a year, think a career, right? It's exactly what we're talking about. So if I'm thinking career, I'm thinking professionalism, but I'm also thinking, what can I do to create raving fans? And creating raving fans is not just in your professional execution. It's absolutely rooted in, when this person walked away from me, what did they feel, right? Probably the last thing to talk about is, in the book on Unreasonable Hospitality, which is amazing. Well, there's two books that people should read as a result of this episode. I think one is Unreasonable Hospitality. The other one is Giftology, right? Both of those are all about creating experiences that people walk away and they have an emotion and they have a feeling from, right? And in one of the chapters of Unreasonable Hospitality, they talk about being right is irrelevant. Very, very important that when you end up in a situation, not with an abusive buyer or seller, but with a buyer or seller, and you have that moment that you want to explain why they're wrong and why you're right, or why this was the right path, just know that it's irrelevant. What is fully relevant is how that person feels after that conversation you just had. If you rewire yourself, again, growth-minded, to understand that, you're going to be able to navigate hard situations without the hard, heavy emotions impacting the relationship as much.
Yeah, and it goes back to some of the other episodes we've talked about. If you get really good at asking questions, you can lead that person to the result that you want them to get to, but they self-discover it, opposed to you telling them they're an idiot and they should do it this way.
Yes. Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've wanted to tell somebody, something that was going to make them feel a certain way that wasn't going to be helpful for either of us. And then you just own it and you apologize for it. And then right after that, they say, I'm being a jerk. I'm so sorry. No, actually, tell me that again. I think you're probably right. Doesn't always happen, but it happens more than you'd think.
Nice. That was awesome. I have some notes and some thoughts and some things that I have to put into practice now because, as a professional, I want to be a professional that goes above and beyond and helps my clients and gives them that experience that they deserve.
Yeah.
And so, this was awesome. Anything else to add?
No, I would just say, like, when you step out of listening to this episode, just ask yourself this question: am I paying attention? Right? Am I aware? Right? And if I'm aware, then once I'm aware, do I take immediate action? If we're just going to boil this whole thing down, it's be aware of what the other person's experiencing, and as soon as you're aware, create an amazing experience by taking immediate action. You do those things, you'll go from being a professional to being a legend. Let's call it that.
Nice. That's awesome. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. As always, go to rmgagentpodcast.com. Check out action guides, all the things. Listen to our last episodes. We've got, I think, 47, 48 episodes at this point. So there's lots of content, lots of great things. There should be something for any scenario that you're going through. And always, we are here to impact, empower, and encourage you in your real estate career and in your lives.
Awesome. Take care, guys. Appreciate you.